Hi all, we are really excited to be here to talk about all things cookies and privacy, together with our very special partners, ObservePoint. I am Chiara and I take care of communication here at BitBang. I'd like to present my colleague Anna Daminato, Chief Privacy Officer here at BitBang, and our guest speaker, Dave Smith, who is the CTO at ObservePoint. A few words about BitBang. We are a data consultancy company based in Italy. We have 20 years of experience in the so-called dataverse. Our mission is empowering data-driven decision-making through data strategy, data execution, and insight delivery practices at scale. Regarding our partnership with ObservePoint, it began 4 years ago. Now we have clients in the fashion luxury and in the food and beverage industry. We thank you all from the audience for the questions you submitted on the registration of the event. We will look to answer as many of these as possible during the discussion today. In fact, they will represent the core of our webinar. In case any other question comes to your mind, we will hold a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We have attached various documents for you to take away from this webinar, which you can see in the attachment section below, including a cookie cheat sheet, which I believe you will find very useful, and the contact details on how you can reach out to us in case you want to learn more or you want to deep dive into some specific necessity that your business has. This session will be recorded and will be available on demand shortly after the live session. Finally, of course, we appreciate any feedback you have on this webinar. So if there is anything that you were expecting to see and that you didn't, or information that you thought was particularly useful to you, we greatly welcome your feedback. Now, let's get straight to the point, and I'll pass it over to our guest speaker, Dave, CTO of ObservePoint, to introduce us to the topic of today. Thank you, Dave.
Hi, thank you, BitBang, for having me. It's a real pleasure. Very much appreciate it. Like was said, my name is Dave Smith. I'm the CTO at ObservePoint. ObservePoint is a company that offers products and services to companies that operate websites. And we have a very robust privacy offering that helps companies manage the compliance of their website with lots of different privacy policies that you want to implement. The core of our product is a web scanning technology that will crawl your website and inspect every page that it finds, looking at all the information that we can in order to help you implement the policies that you want to govern your website. Today, we're going to focus on privacy, which is one of several areas where ObservePoint specializes in website governance. And in particular, I wanted to share with you how we do this. And then after I'd give a little intro, we'll do a bunch of questions that go into more specifics. But imagine if you're responsible for managing the privacy compliance of your website, and you think to yourself, my site has thousands of web pages, many of which I don't know where they are. I don't know all the technologies that are operating on these sites. I don't know if every page is compliant with all the different rules that my users are operating within. And maybe they come from multiple geographies. Maybe they have different states where they have consented to tracking and some haven't consented to tracking. ObservePoint will help you manage all of that by we have a flexible platform that will allow you to specify your desired state, and then our system will automatically crawl your website and alert you if any of the pages don't comply with that state. So let me just give you a few examples. Let's say that you've got cookies on your site. Almost every website on Earth has cookies involved in it, and these cookies are subject to different policies. And you want to know if the cookies that are on your site are in compliance with your own policies that you have designed for your jurisdictions and for the users that you serve. ObservePoint will automatically collect and report all of the cookies that are on every page on your sites, and then report to you when any of those cookies do not match your criteria for which cookies are allowed and which cookies are not allowed. Not just cookies, though. It goes further. Any network request that sends data to a geography that you don't want to allow, ObservePoint will also alert you about that, and much, much more. And of course, this is a very complex landscape. Cookies, privacy, compliance, these are all very nuanced and complicated. So we're here to help with that. And our product is here to help with that. And we're going to go into a lot more depth. So again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to talking through the questions that we have.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Chiara, for introducing me. I'm Anna Dominato, Chief Privacy at BitBank. I would have this, let's say, little introduction just to deep dive on the privacy compliance perspective, just to let's say remind to this audience and to all of us which is the controller required to put in place to meet the privacy and data protection requirements when it comes to cookie compliance specifically. Basically, we can somehow divide and split, let's say, this team into domain, the front end side of the thing and the back end side of the thing. From a front end perspective, so from a user facing perspective, we have to put in place basically three key objects that let's say could help a controller to meet the compliance requirements. First of all, we need to have the cookie banner displayed on our web pages and on the landing page. So whenever the user is visiting, let's say, our property for the very first time, then within the banner we need to link the other two objects. One is the cookie center, let me call it like this, so where the end user and the data subject, if we want to say, has the occasion and the possibility to freely choose which kind of cookie and tracking he or she wants to have on the site. And as well, and always within the banner, we need to link the cookie policies. So basically, we need to have these three objects in place from a front-end perspective. These two, let's say, to meet two basic requirements. One is the requirement from let's say, a GDPR perspective, if you want. First of all, as reference, as starting reference, which is the controller needs to give a clear and transparent information. So we have a duty of information to the end user and data subject. On the other hand, we need to give a linear and clear flow to the end user and data subject to manage the consent they give or withdraw on site. With reference to cookies and trackings as well. So basically, these are the three objects that a controller needs to put in place on their properties to meet the basic requirements from a GDPR perspective, but also from other, let's say, legislative perspective around the world. We can, for example, align the UK requirements, so the ICO requirements to the EU requirements. There are other and different requirements from a US, for example, perspective, but basically and substantially the requirements is always the same or quite similar, let's say. We need to inform the data subject and we need to give them, let's say, the possibility to freely choose what they want and how they want to be tracked online. From a backend perspective, instead, we can, or we may have, let's say, the need to use various management tools. And of course, it's here that ObservePoint can help a lot. Why? Because basically ObservePoint gives a lot of tools and features to be able to better govern and monitor and have a clear view and visibility on the various trackings that we implement online. I'm saying this because typically within the organization, we have several teams that can inject, let's say, cookies and trackings on the properties. And the first, let's say, limit for a compliance analyst or manager is to be able to put together or have visibility on all the various teams injections. So ObservePoint, first of all, can help you basically scan your properties, all the pages, and put together a consistent list of the cookies and trackings that you have injected on your properties. On the other hand, we, of course, together with ObservePoint, can do this in an automated way. And this is quite crucial and important because automating such a process will, of course, let's say, reduce at a very minimum the resources that we use today, that our controller use today to somehow monitor and remain compliant and up to date with reference to cookie lists, cookie table, descriptions, classifications, and so on and so forth. So from a backend perspective, the key, let's say, contribution of ObservePoint is also very valuable in terms of resources, in terms of reducing the resources and, of course, reducing the margin of human error that you have when you go, let's say, and walk around your organization trying to ask, let's say, your colleague for, let's say, declaring the various injections they set and they put on the site. So this is basically the very key attributes that we see as a high value from a compliance and privacy and data protection, of course, compliance in ObservePoint. I think that these are the two views that I wanted to give to you by now. So from a front-end perspective, what we need, what a controller needs to put in place to meet the cookie compliance requirements, and how ObservePoint can help you and your organization and also the teams within your organization to reduce the time and effort and margin of error. So basically the risk that you have in not, let's say, declaring the transparently the cookie list that you should declare and inform the end users about. I will probably stop here by now and give it back to Chiara or
Hi all, here I'm back. I think we can go to the questions that we have gathered during the registrations, because there were really many and interesting, and they will allow us to cover quite a lot of interesting points. Maybe Dave, you can take them, and then you and Anna can both answer according to the specific question about whatever interesting things you have to say about that.
Absolutely.
okay.
Thank you.
Let's start with the most broad question and the biggest introduction here. The question that everyone is afraid to ask: what is a cookie? So I'll take just a minute and give an introduction that is particularly relevant to a privacy compliance audience of what is a cookie. A cookie is a piece of information that a website gives to a user's browser, which the browser is responsible for storing. And then when the user returns to that website later, the browser gives that same information back to the server. Now, that's a technical description, but this enables 3 use cases by allowing websites to identify users who have visited previously and know that this is the same user who is now returning. That allows 3 use cases to happen, the 3 most common use cases. The first one, number 1, is this allows users to log in to a website. They can log into a site. The site can maintain their session while they're logged in, know who they are, and allows them to return later and still be logged in. So even if you close your browser, come back, maybe 2 days later, a week later, a month later, depending on your settings on your website, you can still be logged in. So that's number 1, is user logins. Number 2 is this allows users to store preferences. For example, one of the most relevant preferences that are often stored in cookies is the user's consent state for opting in or opting out of tracking. Very, very common for that to happen in a cookie. So that's number 2, preferences. Number 3, analytics. If a website wants to track visits or events on different pages, it's very common to use a cookie so that the analytics manager knows that a particular user performed the different actions, but all associated with that user. And they do that through a cookie with a unique identifier for that user. There are, of course, other use cases as well that help track repeat users through cookies, things like advertising and other use cases like that. But these are the biggest use cases. And these are particularly relevant for privacy because some of these cookie use cases have different compliance rules about what website owners are responsible for tracking. And of course, we'll go into those details later. But that, in its essence, is what a cookie is. Anna, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I was just thinking because the legal definition of cookie, of course, it's less complex and less complete, of course. So is something related to the granted privacy, for example. So the Italian Data Protection Authority, which defines the cookie, a little file text, which let's say, of course, memorize the information from the first visit of the end users and keep and store them on the browser for, let's say, basically do what you just described. So somehow facilitate let's say somehow ease the second and the future visits of the end users. It's quite synthetic from a legal perspective, but it was at the very moment, because we are talking about if we refer to the Italian Data Protection Authority, this is something that it goes back in the time. But again, it's quite punctual, I would say. From a legal perspective, is what we need to identify a cookie.
Very good. Should we go to our next question here? Okay. What is the difference between a first-party cookie and a third-party cookie? So let me give the technical description here, and then you'll find, I think, that it's a little bit nuanced. But a first-party, well, first, before we say what a first-party cookie is, we need to understand that every cookie has technical attributes associated with it that tell the browser how to treat that cookie. One of those attributes is called domain. And the domain attribute on a cookie tells your browser, hey, if I give you a cookie for domain X, when the user returns to domain X, you send that cookie to domain X. But if the user goes to domain Y, do not send the cookie to domain Y. Okay, so it's important to understand that domain attribute. Now, what is a first-party cookie? A first-party cookie is a cookie that is given to a user's browser on a website where the domain matches the address bar domain that the user is visiting at that moment. So it's relevant in the context of the user's navigation. So when you look up at the address bar in your browser and you see the website address, just the domain portion, if the cookies on your browser match that domain, those are first-party cookies in the context of that page. But it is possible for websites to set cookies or to indirectly cause cookies to be set on your browser that have a different domain. And you might wonder, well, how is that done? Well, it's done through several different techniques, including pixels on the page or JavaScript network requests that go to different domains, or even just loading scripts. And in those requests, your browser, while visiting domain X, can generate network activity to domain Y, and domain Y can set a cookie. And those are third-party cookies. And the reason this is important is because when a user visits a site that, for example, is participating in Google's advertising network, that site will load a tag, and that tag will generate network requests through a pixel, through JavaScript, or some other means to Google. And then those network requests will include cookies that have the domain equal to Google's domain. And that is how Google knows that a user is visiting a different site, even if they're not on a Google website. And so these are third-party cookies. So they facilitate tracking across domains. Third-party cookies today are the primary means by which you get targeted advertising that is relevant to your browsing history on different sites.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I can add something, Dave, here from, again, to give a privacy compliance perspective. With reference to first-party and third-party cookies, basically what we need to keep in mind as a controller is that we have a duty to inform our data subject when we are using third-party cookies, basically because from a privacy compliance perspective, we are somehow communicating the data we collect with these trackings to a third party. So with reference to the information we need to declare and insert in our cookie policy, and also within the let's say details that we need to have in our cookie table within the cookie list, we need to somehow put in clear and explicit when the cookie is a third-party cookies.
Perfect. Shall we go to the next question, Anna?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, next question. How do I know what cookies my website is serving to users? Okay, this is a great question. Now, you could try to know all the cookies that your website is serving to users by inspecting your pages manually. This would be very, very difficult to do. If you wanted to try this, what you would do is you would manually visit every page in your site, and for each page, you would view all the cookies that the browser is currently storing. And then as you move from page to page, you would need to make a note of any new cookies that appear on your list. Now, a typical browser for a typical user has thousands of cookies that have been stored. When I look at my current cookie list just on my own web browser, I think my list is up to, let's just have a look here, 2,713 cookies on my computer right now. So the fact that there are so many cookies on the typical user's browser, and the fact that typical websites have thousands of pages, makes it nearly impossible to manually audit your site and find all the cookies. Probably it would take hundreds of hours to do and would produce many errors. And I want to make you aware, there are some tools that help with this, free tools such as Chrome extensions that will allow you to view your cookies, but it is not something that I would ever recommend someone do manually. The best way I'm aware of is to use ObservePoint to scan your website. And the reason this works is because ObservePoint will crawl your site and visit automatically every page following all the links on every page, and record all the cookies that come into existence on every page. And it'll even tell you which cookies are first party, which cookies are third party, which is very challenging to do after the fact because you don't know what page you were looking at. It'll even tell you exactly where those cookies came from, right down to the line of JavaScript code that set them. So if you need to find, I mean, it's great to know that you have a cookie, but your next question is always, okay, who put this cookie on the site, and how do I take it off, or how do I manage it? How do I talk to the team that created this cookie? And ObservePoint will tell you the full cookie's genealogy, the full history of where that cookie came from, the line of JavaScript code that set it, who initiated that JavaScript code, who initiated that, what tag management technology was in place to bring that in, and so on and so on. And it lets you trace the initiator chain for every cookie. And this is great for a one-time thing, but like Anna said earlier, automating this and repeatedly scanning your site really is the key to maintaining your compliance posture. If you do this once, it will tell you what cookies you have. But in the future, if new cookies appear that you did not expect, then how are you going to have to do it again? Well, this is what ObservePoint automates. So we have an alerting system that once you set up an audit, which you can set up to run every hour, every day, every week, every month, whatever works for your policies, and you can set up custom alerts to tell ObservePoint, hey, notify me if a new cookie appears that doesn't match my compliance policy, or if a cookie disappears, or if the number of cookies increases. We have a very flexible alerting system. And it was designed this way because the compliance world, Anna will be the first to agree to this, is very complicated. And so we did not want to create a system that only works in one jurisdiction. So our system has been designed to be maximally flexible. So you can set up your own alerting rules to be notified when and if your website goes out of compliance with that.
Yeah, and I do agree, Dave. I mean, the compliance rules and regulations around the world, and so not only in Europe, are getting, let's say, quite complex to follow and to implement and to apply with. So I think the very and the key value of ObservePoint is the flexibility, but the fact that it scans each and every page on the property. So sometimes within the cookie policies that we, for example, analyze for our clients, we find within this list that we have a list of cookies, but they are referring only to some key pages like the cart or the My Account. Which is, I mean, a not so transparent information to give to the data subject. And it's key to have the full list of the trackings that we have injected on our properties to be able to also give and meet the accuracy principle from a GDPR perspective, for example. These from two, let's say, ways. On one side, we have with ObservePoint the tools and the mean to easily, let's say, scan the property whenever we want, basically, and this it's the way we can somehow give a full list of cookie and keep this up to date, because the crucial point is to be able to also update, so remove the obsolete trackings and let's say list the new ones. And right. Of course, where the frequency is very high, the more it is high, the more we achieve, let's say, a good level of accuracy in terms of transparency and information transparency.
Very good. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on our final question on some more things that ObservePoint can do to help with that. Let's go to our next one here. So a question about Mac users. Do they have third-party cookies if they're using Safari? The short answer is no. Apple has taken a very strong stance on this. So this applies to users who are on Mac using Safari. It also applies to users who are on iPhone using Safari, if they visit your site and your site attempts to create a third-party cookie on that browser, either directly or indirectly, the browser will reject the cookie and not store it. Apple introduced what they call intelligent tracking prevention about 10 years ago. This has slowly removed all third-party cookies from these browsers. And then just a few years ago, they completely 100% removed all third-party cookie tracking. All right. I think we should go on to the next question here, Anna. Okay. Good question. Are we moving to a cookieless future, a future without cookies, or is it an overstatement? Well, let me give my prediction on what the future will hold. I believe that cookies are, at least first-party cookies, are a permanent part of the web and will not be going away in the foreseeable future. I have heard no plans from any browser vendor or any standards body to move to a completely cookieless future. However, as we mentioned in our last question, Apple has already started blocking third-party cookies, and Google has been promising to block third-party cookies for a couple of years. When that happens, and that's something we will need to keep an eye on as website managers, when that happens, we will need to find ways to implement our important business use cases without third-party cookies. Now, this could be years away, I think, because they have a strong incentive to keep third-party cookies. But it will be harder to do things like track marketing attribution for ad conversions. For example, if you participate in an advertising network, things like tracking view-throughs and click-throughs correctly will become more difficult without third-party cookies. But websites can still function without third-party cookies, and that's because first-party cookies are not going away in the foreseeable future. That's my prediction.
I'm quite aligned, if I could say, Dave, with you, because so from a legal perspective, what we can say at the moment is that on one side, I do agree with you. I mean, the first party cookies, so technical and functionalities cookies would not go away. Otherwise, the website would not be, let's say, would not perform efficiently. On the other hand, the legislator is can approach from a very substantial, let's say, way. So if we are simply talking, or we are simply, let's say, moving from cookie and trackings to another type of technology, substantially the requirements will remain the same. So if we are tracking the data subject, we need to give them information. We need to provide them with all information required by the cookie compliance requirements, and we need to give them free choice. So they should always be in the position to choose whether to be tracked or not. Instead, as you said, probably would get longer to see an online future without any tracking. Thinking about all the digital marketing, let's say, world, and this, I cannot imagine something. The internet without let's say the advertisement and the digital marketing or performance marketing. Yeah. Let's say KPIs, if you want. So it would be very far. Probably we are simply trying to describe differently or a server-to-server technology or something very similar, but we would probably still track the data subject.
Okay, next question here. Any other questions? I think there was a couple more here we should cover. Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yes, good question here. What should you be testing? I think this is our final question.
I think yes, it should be our final question.
I think, Anna, you'll share most of the information on here that's the most valuable, but I'd like to share just a little bit of information first. One of the aspects that is required testing, I believe, for anyone who wants to comply with all the jurisdictions of privacy compliance, is that you need to understand that your users come to your website from multiple different contexts. And there are three categories of context that I think every website owner needs to be aware of and testing for. The first one is geographical. So different users who originate from different geographies have different requirements that you must comply with. Now, this does not matter where your company is headquartered. It matters where the users are coming from. Now, I say it doesn't matter where you're headquartered. Let me be clear. That also matters. But that's not the only consideration. Just because your company is headquartered in Italy doesn't mean that Italy, like the Italian Data Protection Authority, is not the only compliance you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of the jurisdictions that your users live in. For example, if you have users coming from the UK or Germany or others, they have different laws, and you need to be aware of that. So number one is geography. Number two is consent management states. Users will come to your website and they will interact with your consent management platform and tell you whether they want to be tracked or not. And, there's multiple questions here. I want to be tracked for performance reasons, but not advertising, etc. You have to be aware of that state that users come to you. So that's number two. And number three, this one's a new one. Also, it's related to consent, but it's a different mechanism called GPC, or Global Privacy Control. This is new in 2023. It's a new standard that allows users to configure a setting in their browser that says universally I want to be tracked, or universally I want to be opted out. And this is new. So a lot of websites don't yet comply with this, but GPC was right at the heart of the Sephora case from California, where the Attorney General of California levied a fine on Sephora because they were not honoring the GPC setting of users who came to their site. So those three things. Now, good news, ObservePoint can help with all three of these. And what makes ObservePoint useful is you can create automated scans with different settings turned on or off to simulate traffic from these different states. For example, you can run a scan with GPC turned on. Then you can set up a scan with GPC turned off and have different alerts that trigger based on how your website performs in those different states. Same thing with geography. We have over 30 different geographies where we can originate synthetic traffic from to allow you to test different behavior of your site and then create custom alerts for those geographies. And same with consent management states. You can configure ObservePoint to take actions like clicking buttons on your site before you begin a scan, so that then the synthetic user comes in with that state. So it's comprehensive. I mean, it makes a really great way for you to create a custom policy for you. Okay, the last thing I want to say on this. Most of the time, what people look for is cookies on their site. They say, hey, if I have GPC turned on, if a user comes to my website with GPC, then I should not set third-party cookies, or my site should not be setting third-party cookies. Well, that is only true some of the time. There are now very new, like within the last few months, new technologies coming from the three biggest advertisers, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, that will allow you to specify to them how you want to handle user consent. For example, Facebook has a new feature called Data Processing Options with a setting called LDU, or Limited Data Use, that actually appears not as a cookie, but as a tag variable. And ObservePoint can let you check that as well. And so you can verify that when the user has GPC turned on, that the Facebook LDU setting is correct. Google has something they call consent mode, and Microsoft has universal event tracking consent mode. And I would love to include links to these in the notes after the webinar so you can see how to set these up for your website. But I want you to know that ObservePoint is here to help you verify that your website is using these technologies correctly, so you can set up rules and alerts to verify that your website is doing the right thing with all these different technologies.
Very, very useful, I would say, Dave. And we can all see how things evolve quickly. So it's very useful. So if you could share the links, I think the others would appreciate. Probably from our cookie and privacy compliance, we have covered, the key principle that we can, let's say, we can meet with the help and support of ObservePoint. There's probably one last thing apart from reminding all controllers and website operators that with our tools like ObservePoint, we are somehow facilitated in meeting key requirements like be in the position to demonstrate accountability, have a very high level of accuracy in the data we collect and the trackings we inform the data subject about. There's probably one last thing I would like to mention and to underline, which is something that we can find within the lines in all within the entire GDPR, and I would somehow include this as a key and crucial point for controllers and properties managers, which is basically the controller is somehow requested to keep up to date with the evolvement of the technology solutions. And we think that ObservePoint do go this way. So you as a controller and website operators, you can be in a better position to demonstrate that you are using a tool and you have the means to somehow automate the process of monitoring and somehow enabling and the level of cookie governance that for the cookies and trackings that you have online. So just reminding that the controllers are requested to keep up to date to the evolvement of the tech market and the solutions that it offers. Chiara, I think, I mean, from my perspective, I said all. I think I covered all the key points I wanted to underline together with Dave. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Dave and Anna, for your insights on this topic. It was, I think, a very dense webinar packed with information. So maybe it will be useful for our audience to look through it and to look at all the documents and the material that we have attached to it. I really hope you all in the audience find it useful. So our time is over for now, so we'll leave it here. I hope it was an interesting session for everybody, and really do reach back to us with your feedbacks and your opinion. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.